everybody, and welcome to Music City Murder, a podcast about the crimes and history of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm your host, T. Blake Brady, but you friends can call me Tyler. Thank you so much for joining me. Music City Murder is meant to give people an insight not just into the most famous murders in and around Nashville, but also into the city's history as well and what makes Music City tick. Now, as host, I'm an educator by day and a writer by night. You can find my books, namely the Rolson McCain Southern Mystery Series, on Amazon in Parnassus, over in Green Hills. If you're a fan of James Lee Burke's Dave Robichaux series, you'll probably dig my books too. I also have a Nashville suspense novel called Suicide Blondes that's available at Parnassus, but also on Audible if you like reading books with your ears. Now, this episode is going to be a Patreon episode, so the first several minutes will be available for free on the feed, and then the rest of it will be over on the Patreon. So if you want to hear the whole shindig, then you're going to have to go over to Patreon and check it out, patreon.com/Music City Murder. One last thing before we begin. If you like what you hear, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Do it on the Apple Podcasts app. I mean, it's the little purple icon on your phone. And I don't care. It's not about my ego. It's really about the algorithm and how Apple sees like, oh, this got a new review. Let's jump it up the charts a little bit. So it will help distinguish me from the hundreds of millions of podcasts that are out there, especially true crime ones. I don't really know how it helps, but it does help. So please go give it 5 stars. Doesn't matter what you say, but just say something. Say something nice, preferably. But otherwise, that's it. And let's get on to the show. Now, this episode, I will preface by saying, is not about murder specifically, but it is about torment and scary things, so I thought that you guys would enjoy it. My sources are an authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch, this is the famous text about the Bell Witch. I'm also going to include an article titled Historian Descendant Recount Bell Witch Legend. It's from the AP News by Cassandra Stevenson. And then it's kind of an amalgamation of several podcast episodes about the topic. I listened to a lot so I could grind it down through my meat grinder into one beautiful casing of sausage that is this episode. Okay. Now, this was supposed to come out during Halloween, and if you listen to the last episode, the update, you will know that my computer died on me. So it's been just a hellish fall. But now the computer's back, I'm back, as well as the new episode of MCM. So I originally intended this to be a celebration of Halloween, my favorite time of year. I just love fall before it gets to the bitingly cold, dark evenings of December. And so here we are. Most of you have probably heard of the Bell Witch in some form or fashion. It's the most famous witch haunting story in the United States. A lot of the movies that we've seen over the last several years, Haunting in Connecticut, American Haunting, a lot of those are derived from the stories of the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch is kind of the precursor to a lot of modern haunting stories. And for a reason, it's the nation's most famous witch tale. Now, before we get into this specific episode, I want to talk about witches in general for a little bit. Now, the appearance of witches usually precedes some sort of historical uprising on the part of women. Because as we know, I mean, especially in America, religious mores tended to push women into the kitchen, into the background of society. And so anytime women tried to assert their rights, it seems to coincide with a witch hunt. And one of the most famous cases, maybe the most famous case in all of history, has to do with the Salem witch trials, in which women were hanged for thinking independently, living their own lives, choosing or not choosing to follow the religion of the times, dancing in the woods. It seems to me that witchcraft is really just a metaphor for male society being incapable of handling the rights and responsibilities of women. And I don't know that this case necessarily fits that. I mean, it is about a woman being castigated for being different, so we will see that a little bit. Let's just get into it. I think that I've given you enough of a preview. Unfortunately, this is a Patreon's only episode. So if you want to hear the full experience, you have to go to patreon.com/Music City Murder and hop on board. The good thing is that I've made an update to the tiers, and so everyone who subscribes will get access to this episode. So the $1 tier, so $1 for the month, and you get access to the episode, and the $3 tier if you just want to be generous and amazing to the podcast. I just thought that it would be fair to do that since I missed the month of October with a broken computer. So go subscribe and you can get the full Bell Witch experience. The link will also be in the description for the episode, so you can get it there as well. Otherwise, we will see you next time on Music City Murder.